Hi, and welcome to Christian Minstrel Pioneers. I'm your host, Bill Bolbeck. We're going to take a look and listen to the life and music of one of the most lauded women in gospel. Born in Chicago, she began singing in the youth choir at her church. She was taken under the wing of and mentored by the legendary Mahalia Jackson, and then, once out on her own, began to do the same for other talented newcomers to the gospel music scene. She recorded prodigiously throughout her career and worked with all the giants. She, as so many of her contemporaries did, struggled against the prejudices that so engulfed the United States in the early part of the 20th century. She always held her head high, though, and demanded the respect of others. Whether singing as part of a group or as a solo artist, this lady always kept her mission in mind, to sing for God. And sing she did, for audiences of regular, everyday folk to presidents of the United States as well as other countries. Her work for charities was unbounded, offering support to the United Negro College Fund, the American Cancer Society, National Council of Negro Women, the NAACP, and many others. Numerous Grammy Awards could be found with her name on them, as could Dove Awards, Stellar Awards, keys to various American cities, as well as an honorary degree from the Chicago Theological Seminary. She guested on TV shows like Oprah, Good Morning America, and The Travis Smiley Show, and once, while doing a cameo appearance in a Hollywood movie, caused the entire production to shut down because everyone, cast and crew, was in tears. If there was a tradition in gospel music of naming people saints, this woman, Albertina Walker, would most definitely be in that category. Albertina was born to Reuben and Camille Coleman Walker August 29, 1929 in Chicago, Illinois. Her parents had moved to the Windy City from Bibb County, Georgia, sometime between 1917 and 1920. Albertina was one of 9 siblings, 4 of whom had been born in Bibb County and the other 4 born in Chicago. The family lived on Chicago's South Side and attended the West Point Baptist Church. Albertina was about 4 years old when she began to sing in the church's children's choir. She was blessed to be able to hear a number of outstanding gospel artists as they came to perform at West Point: the Roberta Martin Singers, Sadie Durham, and Professor Fry. Under the watchful eye of Professor Pete Williams, West Point Church's children's choir director, Albertina grew and matured in her singing style. By age 14, she was a member of his group, the Williams Singers, touring with Willie Webb and the Robert Anderson Singers. It wasn't long after that Albertina joined the famed Mahalia Jackson, singing and touring with the legend. Jackson became not only a significant influence on Walker, but also a close friend and confidant. In 2010, during an interview with the Washington Post, Walker recalled how Jackson would joke around with her and tell her that, quote, "Girl, you need to go sing by yourself," unquote. In 1951, at age 22, Albertina did just that. Pulling friends and fellow singers she knew from the Robert Anderson Singers, Walker formed the Caravans. Albertina said she christened them the Caravans because they had people from Gary, East Chicago, the South Side, the West Side, and all over. The original Caravans consisted of Walker, along with Elise Yancey, Nellie Grace Daniels, and Oralee Hopkins Sampson. In 1952, the Caravans signed a deal with States Records, and for the next 2 years released some classic recordings, including the songs "Mary Don't You Weep," "Soldiers in the Army," "The Solid Rock," and "Blessed Assurance," among others. The Caravans, the group assembled by Walker in 1951, were recording for States Records by 1952 and performing in an ever-widening area outside their native Chicago. Various performers continued to come and go from the Caravans lineup even in their early days. Bessie Griffin joined in 1953 but left after 1 year. Cassietta George also joined in 53 and stayed for 2 years. Dorothy Norwood came on board in 1955 and then left in 1957 to form the Norwood Singers. Inez Andrews joined in 1957 at the recommendation of the group's then pianist and arranger, James Cleveland. As these different singers came and then left, Walker did not hesitate to take advantage of the distinct sound each woman brought to the musical table. While the Caravans continued to hold to the close harmonies and precise rhythms of the original group, each individual member was also given the opportunity to perform solos on alternating leads. As the Caravans' popularity reached new heights throughout the 1950s, you could hear Shirley Caesar's agile alto on Swing Low Sweet Chariot, the powerful contralto of Inez Andrews on Mary Don't You Weep, Dolores Washington's dramatic soprano, and even the frenetic piano of accompanist Eddie Williams. By the late 1950s, the Caravans were known on a national level and headlined gospel shows at prestigious venues like Carnegie Hall and others. Audiences were mesmerized by the sound of this group, which set a new standard for female gospel singing. The Caravans broke the traditional mold by bringing together enormously talented solo artists as a single ensemble, but at the same time highlighting what each person contributed to the whole. The concept not only resulted in powerful ethereal music, but also acted as a unique launching pad for literally over a dozen musical careers, which earned Albertina Walker the nickname the Star Maker. By 1959, the Caravans, consisting of Walker, Inez Andrews, Shirley Caesar, Dolores Washington, Josephine Howard, and James Herndon, were one of the most popular and best-known gospel groups in the United States. By this time, the Caravans had recorded a number of songs for States Records, and then, beginning in 1955, Savoy Records. The early 1960s continued this run of success for the Caravans in spite of further personnel changes. Cassietta George returned to the group in 1962, and this lineup remained fairly stable until 1966, when she left the group again along with Shirley Caesar, both of whom established solo careers. Inez Andrews, who had left in '62, returned in '66, but then in 1967 she left again, along with longtime members Josephine Howard, Dolores Washington, and James Herndon. With so great an upheaval in the group, their fortunes began to wane a bit. James Cleveland and Dorothy Norwood came back to help with some recording in 1967, and Albertina recruited new members Lolietta Holloway and Julia May Price to fill in the vacancies. It's interesting to note that Lolietta Holloway, just a teenager when she joined the Caravans, would eventually go on to become a diva in the world of disco music. By 1968, the new lineup of the group was set with Walker, as always, Holloway, Julia May Price, Doris Willingham, Gwen Morgan, and Willie James McFadder. For the next 3 to 4 years, the new Caravans performed and recorded for HOB Records, as well as doing some Donny Hathaway songs for Chicago's Caritas record label. In 1972, the Caravans called it quits, and the group officially disbanded. Walker, who had married in the late 60s, took a bit of time off from the rigors of touring and recording, but she wasn't idle very long. She ended up recording a series of solo projects with various church choirs for record labels Savoy, Benson, Word, and A&M, among others. Then, in 1975, Albertina Walker recorded her own solo project called Put a Little Love in Your Heart. The last half of the 70s saw Walker team up with former Caravan pianist James Cleveland for several projects. Although the Caravans had broken up in 1972, the group never really disappeared completely. In 1976, Walker, along with Cassietta George, Josephine Howard, and Dolores Washington, reunited to record an album of all new material for the Birthright record label. The album was called Share and featured special guest Isaiah Jones Jr. on piano. Over the next few years, various former members of the Caravans would get together with Albertina for reunion concerts. The 1970s wound up with Albertina Walker having disbanded the Caravans and then reuniting with some of the most recognized members for a one-off recording. She had also recorded a number of solo records on the Savoy label, such as Please Be Patient With Me, which won her first Grammy nomination, I Can Go to God in Prayer, Spread the Word, and I Won't Last a Day Without You. In the 1980s, she moved over to Word Epic Records and recorded the albums Let Jesus Come Into Your Heart, I Will Wait on You, and Joy Will Come in the Morning. Walker kept busy, as always, recording, performing, and touring, with highlights that included a 1988 reunion concert with Inez Andrews, Shirley Caesar, Dolores Washington, and James Cleveland at that year's Stellar Awards program. By the end of the decade, Albertina Walker had been nominated for a Grammy Award 11 times. She would eventually win one in 1995. 1988 also saw Walker achieve something that was very close to her heart. she was finally able to establish the Albertina Walker Scholarship Foundation for the Creative and Performing Arts. The foundation was set up to provide financial assistance to college students to help them further their musical education. It was a natural progression from all the charitable work Walker had been involved in previous years. As the 1980s wrapped up, Albertina Walker was positioned to begin to receive even more recognition of her talent and stature in the world of gospel music. The 1990s picked up where the 80s had left off. A busy Albertina Walker traveling, singing, and promoting the good news of the gospel through her music. She was recruited for a cameo appearance in the 1992 Steve Martin movie Leap of Faith. Walker sang a solo for one of the scenes in the movie, and according to Walker's granddaughter, Tina Nace, who was an extra in the film, after Walker had finished the song Blessed Assurance, production had to be halted as virtually everyone in the cast and crew was in tears. Steve Martin later sent Walker a bouquet of flowers and a card that read, "You are truly the greatest gospel singer in the world." Nance says her grandmother treasured that card because both of them admired Martin's comedy and counted The Jerk as one of their favorite movies. In 1994, during one of Walker's regular appearances at the Chicago Gospel Festival, she was honored with the renaming of 35th and Cottage Grove Streets to Albertina Walker and the Caravans Drive. There was also a bench named for her placed in downtown Chicago's Grant Park. Walker also reunited with her old Caravan friends Dorothy Norwood, Dolores Washington, and Cassietta George for a song on one of Norwood's albums. 1995 saw Walker win her first ever Grammy Award for the album Songs of the Church live in Memphis. In 1997, she was given an honorary Doctor of Letters degree from the Chicago Theological Seminary of the University of Chicago. And then in August 1999, a House bill was filed in the House of Representatives of the state of Illinois to officially congratulate and commemorate Walker's 70th birthday. It was adopted by the House in November 1999. Better late than never. Her final decade with us continued to be as busy as had all her previous ones. Awards and honors continued to come her way. Walker was inducted into the Gospel Music Hall of Fame in Nashville in 2001. President George Bush honored her for her contributions to gospel music in 2002. In 2005, Walker reunited again with fellow Caravanners Dorothy Norwood, Inez Andrews, Dolores Washington, and Robert Estevez to record the album Pave the Way. The record was released on the Malaco label in 2006 and was dubbed by Billboard magazine as one of the most memorable releases of the year. The album entered Billboard's top 10 and stayed in the top 40 for 16 weeks. It was also nominated for and won a Grammy, a Dove Award, Soul Train Music Award, and 2 Stellar Awards. As late as 2008, another assemblage of the Caravans featuring Walker, Norwood, Washington, Andrews, and Shirley Caesar was out touring the country. Walker continued to work actively in gospel music until her health would no longer permit it. On her 81st birthday, she was admitted to a Chicago hospital and placed on a ventilator. She had battled with emphysema for some time, and the ailment was starting to get the upper hand. At one point, rumors began to spread that she had died, so in September, she posted a message on her Facebook page stating that she was still around. She was in the ICU at the time and underwent a tracheostomy on September 7th, which her doctors felt was a success. By late September, she was out of the hospital briefly but was readmitted to RML Specialty Hospital for follow-up care and sadly passed away on October 8, 2010. Justifiably crowned the Queen of Gospel and Star Maker, over 20 gospel talents, many of them achieving legendary status themselves, could trace their success directly back to Albertina Walker and the Caravans. Her legacy is almost unfathomable and certainly provides one of the most solid pillars today for gospel, R&B, and soul music, to mention only a few. Thanks so much for joining us for our look at Albertina Walker on Christian Minstrel Pioneers. I'm your host, Bill Bolbeck. Christian Minstrel Pioneers is a joint production of Sonorous Entertainment, WTV Workshop, and Electric Dreams Video.